Women shouldn't be scared to speak up. Those are the powerful words that open today's episode, and they come from a woman who has made an incredible, brave decision to share her story of surviving serious domestic abuse at the hands of her ex-partner. To protect her identity and safety, we will be using a different name for today's conversation. I'm joined by Sarah, not a real name, who has chosen to speak openly about her experiences in the hope of helping others. What you're about to hear is raw, honest, and deeply emotional. But more than anything, this is a conversation about awareness, about recognizing the signs of abusive relationships, understanding the patterns like love bombing, control, and helping people trust what they're feeling when something doesn't feel right. Sarah wants her story to help other women recognize the red flags earlier, to understand they are not alone, and to know that there is support and a way out. I feel incredibly privileged that she has trusted and voiced the void with this platform to share her story in her own words, and I have no doubt that her courage will resonate with and help many others who may be suffering in silence. Please be aware this episode contains discussions of domestic violence and abuse, so listen with care.
So women shouldn't be scared to speak up. For example, like if we wanted to tell our story, we should feel safe and comfortable to go and be able to tell the public our story and to put awareness out there of domestic abuse. Because if we're able to tell our story, then there's services out there that should be able to protect us. And if no women can go out and tell their story or tell their story via social media or anything, then maybe, this is sort of why maybe it keeps happening, because men can see that they are very vulnerable, and then, it's an easy attack then back to reverse to do it again. Yeah, so I was living in a hostel and I'd met this guy and I thought, everything was really good. And was sort of love bombed, now that I understand what that is, and was bought things, was you treat it, as to say, well, the point. And then, as going on, was going down to the wash and stuff in hostel, wasn't really allowed to do that on my own, because he, obviously he was worried that I was going to run off or be with other people, which I wouldn't do. But anyway, and then it got into the case of drug taking, and I wasn't, I used to smoke a bit of cannabis, that was it. And pregabalin was then entered into the scene, and other tablets such as oxycontins was entered in. And all I can really remember from then is like getting off my head and just lying in a room with him. Then things started to get really bad to the point where I was being controlled without knowing I was being fully controlled. Hostel workers could obviously see this. I just blindsided to it completely. Thought it was just being loved again. And then it went on to me and him, arguing, obviously. And the arguments had then turned into abuse, and abuse had turned into that part of abuse where police had to be involved. And I felt scared that if I told police what was actually going on behind closed doors in the hostel, that I would lose my hostel bed. Then I would also be attacked in the street, never mind just at the hostel. And then moved out of he got kicked out of the hostel. I felt the need to go and let him into my flat, which I was on in the hostel temporarily at this point. Then I went back to my flat, felt the need I had to let him back into my flat. And then this is about 6 months later, we're in my flat, and things got, found out I was expecting his baby and stuff. Things got that bad that we were in the flat, and he was just like, he would have checked drink and drugs, more drugs, and everything would have been my fault. Paranoid, I was in bed and would have woke up and seen him out in the hall and wondered what's he doing standing out in the hall at that time in the middle of the night. And I would have got up to go to the toilet and he's standing on my phone looking for my phone. So then I thought, maybe he's just worried, maybe he's been cheated on before. But I didn't know that this was the first stages of control. Then it went from that to, why is he your friend on Facebook? Why is he texting you on Facebook? Would have been people that I was only friends with. And I couldn't answer why the people were on my Facebook apart from them being my friends because there was something else in it. But he made me feel like I was doing wrong. Then got pregnant with his baby, got pregnant to him, was having this baby. And the abuse just got worse and worse. And on my birthday 2 years ago, I was left really badly, blew up in the face, blood all over me, broken nose. Couldn't get that verified, but it does, you know, I have pictures and it does look broken. A lot of people said to me it was a broken nose. That was on my birthday. We were out in the bar and they had taken Ace. And then we had went home, and when I woke up the next morning, the excuse, when I woke him up and I said, look what you've done this to me, you know, what do you expect me to do now? I still protect you. And his excuse was, I can't remember what happened. And I said to him, well, if you can't remember what happened, why are you looking at me with fear? Because he knew he'd done it. And he just kept saying he was sorry. So then I went back to, sure, you said that you didn't know what happened. So how can you be sorry for something that you didn't know what happened? Then it went from there. I moved back to the hostel. Went back to the hostel. When I went back to the hostel, I put my hood up because I was scared of the staff knowing, find out the truth. And again, he was saying to me, you know, hide your face. Don't be letting people see your face. Don't be saying I done that. So staff came up and done a safety check, room check, and they do it twice a day. And when they asked me, was I okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. Why? Then they asked me what happened to my face. So they looked at me as if to say, right, I'll not discuss it here, but we would like to speak to you. And after that, I went down and spoke to staff and told staff that I'd fell down the stairs because this was the excuse he asked me to come up with in the bar, even though there was no stairs in the bar that I was in. I mean, some of the things, you know, that they sort of do to be able to control you, and thinking back now, it's just absolutely wild. Then it went from there on to several incidents with mental torture and physical torture and abuse. But these are just sort of highlighting the main ones. Then it went on to, again, he got his own place. I helped him do it, helped him get that, you know, because felt like it was needed. Then Phyllis and me, you know, I was dragged back in and moved in with him. Thought everything was going to change. This is after he's got out of jail again. And people do say, like, why did you keep going back if you knew he wasn't going to change? I didn't. You know, when you're in that situation, I'm sure a lot of people will agree, you don't think that they're going to do it again. You think, oh, it's going to get better. You know, they really love me, because that's all they keep saying. And they may ring you from a jail, they may send you letters saying sorry, and you feel like you put them there, even though they done that in you to put themselves there. But there's still this situation in the middle where you're still thinking, could I be to blame? And that's, again, what narcissists and the people that are domestic abusers do. So then it well moved on to being threatened with knives in the home. So knives were getting pulled out of drawers, hammers were getting pulled out. Hammer was pulled out and he wrecked the home. And 2 days before this, it was like premeditation of what he was doing, because 2 days before this, he was running about with a hammer saying he was going to wreck his home. And then 2 days later, he pulled the hammer out and ran about with the hammer, smashing the home, and then coming at me with a hammer. So it was near enough like an excuse, like I was going to wreck my house anyway, but you sort of got in the way. That's the way he would have said it. So I ended up hitting you, but that wasn't the case. Cookers were smashed. I was standing cleaning glass and thinking, well, why am I cleaning this? I didn't do it. Right down to, you know, I was standing making a steak dinner, and there was glass in the food that I'd been standing cooking to eat. So again, I didn't get no food. I got to the point where I was just fed up at this point, and I thought, how is this ever going to stop? How am I going to be able to get him help? Asked him to contact mental health and his probation. He was more worried that probation was going to breach him because I was going to speak out about my mental health. He was more worried about probation breaching him. And I said to him, you can't get in trouble for somebody else being mentally unwell. But deep down in his head, he knew that what I was going to tell the mental health was because of what he was doing. Obviously, it was creating me issues. So he was worried, told me not to go near the hospital. I had a breakdown in the home, cut my hair. Lucky enough, there were certain people there around me where I was able to go and speak to them to try and get some advice on what to actually do. Then we went back, had an argument, went back to the home to go around mainly to collect the stuff. Ended up staying there that night. Then on collecting my stuff, he said, threatened me with a knife, threatened, obviously to use the knife. And I said to myself, well, I can't do this, I'm getting out of here. So I got out, and when I got out, then 2 days later, I'm in the going to the hospital, was chased down the stairs was chased down the stairs with the catheter that was in me, damaged my nervous system because he was chasing me with a knife. And went to mental health hospital, and when I went there, he had ended up creating harm to himself and trying to kill himself, stabbing himself in the neck, and blamed me. So again, putting all the blame onto me and making me seem like, but why is he doing this? So then I thought, God, he's tried to kill himself over me. Then it was only when I spoke to mental health and police had said to me, don't stop blaming yourself. This is what they're good at doing. Which is true, because, still to this day, I'm glad that I had the support of them. Then we move on to a different incident where things had been not left. He went to jail and got out in bail. I was in mental health hospital. Was told by certain people to go around and check to make sure he was alive again onto me. And when I went round to the flat, he called the police on me. So I went back home anyway, and I thought, you know what, he can get the police because I haven't done nothing wrong. Then that night, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, I love you. I didn't mean to bring the police on you. Come back round. And also, I texted him the next day. I said, no, I'm not coming back round. You got the police, I'll meet you in public. And he wouldn't meet me in public. So then he kept asking me to come round. I went round. Then I went back home, to home. I don't want to just give the thing where it was. And when we went back, I said to him to stay in the flat because he was absolutely rowdy. He told him to go and get meat for the dinner, give him money to go and get meat for dinner. He came back, he was highly skilled. He's on bail at this point and conditions not to be doing this. And when he came back, he was just like, he had no care in the world. He was, you're a champ, you're this, you're that. And the names were just, I don't know. I was just looking at him like, what the hell? And my words to him was, you say you love me. How is that love? And he said, you're a fucking this and that. And then he followed me on round to the house that I went to anyway, and proceeded that he wanted to come in. And he got in anyway and got my bank card, went to the shop, bought drink, came back up. I drank the drink. I was drinking as well. I drank the drink so I couldn't have any more so he could. Got that highly intoxicated to the point where he started arguing with me. And then next minute I was lying on the floor and all I could feel was these massive kicks and the bangs of my head to the floor. Obviously, tried to lift my head, and I said, you're going to kill me. Stop, you're going to kill me. And his words were, fucking kill you, I will kill you. And he took another run and hit me a bit in the face, like center face. And then I went back down, and that's when I couldn't get up. And I used the table legs to pull me to find strength to get myself even crawling on the floor. And my vision was blurry. I was putting my hands out to get my phone. He thought I was recording him on my phone, which I had then said, yeah, I will record you. But I was that lifeless at that point. Wouldn't have been able to get it. I wasn't even able to get my phone, never mind record him. And when I went to grab the phone, he snatched the phone, put it in the sink, smashed it up on the floor, put it into the sink, ran water over it, and then I stood off and was holding onto the door. And I had said to him, there was someone else upstairs in the house who was actually asleep. And I said, you know, go up and tell them, you know, what's happened. Because if they wake up, I was trying to do reverse psychology at this point, because social services, when I was in the mental health ward, had told me to get out of the kitchen because it's a dangerous place. So that's where I was. I was down in the kitchen, standing in the kitchen after. So then I was like, get me out of this kitchen. So I was trying to do reverse psychology with them to get me out of the kitchen, into the living room or the hall. And he kept saying, no, I'm not going, you're going to leave, you're going to leave. And I said, I'm not going to leave, I'm not going to leave. I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to leave. I said, just go upstairs and tell him what's happened before he wakes up. And he rings the police. So I was standing, and he had turned around and he had said, again, you're going to fucking leave. And I said, I'm not going to leave. So next minute I looked and the door's being locked. And I thought to myself, oh God, I can't leave now. How am I getting out? So I then looked behind me, and there's a door in between the back door. And I'm thinking, well, for me to get out that door, he's going to hear me opening the other door. So it went up a couple of stairs, and I said, yeah, just go on up. So he's going to wake up. You need to go up and tell him. And I said, so the two used him quite when he wakes up. And he had then went up the stairs. And when he went up the stairs, I went to get the door. And the door was locked still. But lucky enough, there was a snib lock from the inside and key only from the outside. So I quickly unlocked it. Tried my best to run, couldn't run. Had used railings in the garden to trail myself along. And by the time I got to the next door neighbour's house, 2 doors up, by the time I got there, her front door, I never did this, but her front door was unlocked, which I knew it was. Well, I didn't know it was, but then I knew once I'd tried to open it, because I'd knocked it. But when I was knocking it, it felt like I wasn't really knocking it because I had no life. I opened the door and screamed help, and they opened the door straight away. And that's the last I can remember. All I can remember is police stood over the top of me, asking me what he was wearing, what colour hair he had, and where I think he had went. And then fast forward on couple of months, 6 months, this is when I found out everything. He then proceeded to stand over the top of the boy up the stairs with knives. Took knives up the stairs with him, which I didn't know, you know, I was, what do you call it, when he kicked, what do you call it, when you're in a daze after you've been attacked?
Concussion, is it?
Yeah, I had concussion, so I didn't know he had knives. And he went upstairs and I stood over the top of him with knives, and said, I'm sorry, I fed her, I fed her again, I'm so sorry, I fed her up again, really bad this time, and I don't know what to do, can you get up and help me? And the person who is very close to me got up and said, what do you mean you fed her again? Are you having a joke with me? Because he thought, what normal person comes up and does this? Who comes up and tells them to feed her again? And his words were, no, I'm not joking. She's going to get the police. Can you hide me? And the person's response was, no, I can't hide you. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have done that. She's probably a way to get the police on her. And that's whenever then he started threatening what he was going to do worse. Lucky enough, I was out of the house. The other boy had felt really badly scared. Obviously, he felt like he was going to get stabbed. Police then came to the door, and he tried to attack police with knives. Police had to pepper spray him, and only recently found out that the same policeman was actually going to shoot him because of how serious it was. So there's nothing in life that's going to take away what's happened to me, but I know I can make it better by getting support. And recently there's been 30 women now left with no life due to domestic. And when this was happening to me, it was young Mary who had only passed due to domestic. And I mean, that has to be a good five women ago. So, you know, when I think back, I think, God, I thought that would have stopped at some point. God, obviously no one's going to put a stop to it forever, but I thought maybe it would have got a bit lighter. The women would have got lighter in a sense. But it hasn't. It only seems to be getting worse. And I mean, there are services out there that can support like women's aid and stuff, but I think men see women as a vulnerable target and think that women aren't ever going to stand up and speak out. And this is why, God rest them, women's families have to do this for them in fear. probably. But the best I think the girls can do that's been through it and is going through the system of criminal justice to get justice is speak out, support each other, and just try and help women that even are going through it and think that they're never going to get out, and maybe teach them a bit about love bombing and stuff like that, because sometimes it is hard to recognize the red flags when you're in it. But I know for me, it was that one thing to click, and that was me. I knew exactly what was going on and what was going to happen again. And still to this day, I would still think about the trauma and the issues it brought me later on in life. But again, that shouldn't define who I am. And that's why I went and tried to speak out and get help, and have got help. But from then, from the past couple of months only, really, from 2 years from the incident, life's only really starting to pick up now, but it does get better at some point. It does get better at some point, and I would just like to say that if you're going through it, you're not alone by any means. You're not alone.
I just want to say thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story with us here today. I know that's not easy to talk about, and we're really grateful for the honesty and courage you've shown in speaking with us and trusting us with your story. A lot of what you shared today is a reminder of how abuse can start in ways that don't always feel obvious at the time. Like you mentioned, love bombing, the subtle shifts in behaviour, the patterns of control that can be really hard to recognise when you're in the middle of it. And to anyone listening, if this has resonated with you in any way, as Sarah said, please know that you're not alone in that, and that there is support out there, that you deserve to be heard and supported without judgment whenever you feel ready. Conversations like this matter because they help us break that silence. And it's often in that silence where people feel most isolated. So yeah, thank you, Sarah, again, and thank you for listening. Please take care of yourselves.